Hi there, my name is Seun Salami. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Now, today I want to talk about something that is a little bit different from love and relationship and all of those different things. Like some of you might know, we had an event last year at the end of 2019 called Advanced Summit. So I want to share some thoughts from that event, why we had the event, and something that I think you're going to really learn a lot from. So many other people who are like me, who've come from other countries into Canada, I found out that there is a cycle of helplessness that comes as a result of repeated failures, okay, which is what I want to talk about today, which is something called learned helplessness, which is an expression used like that I first heard my pastor in Nigeria use in that exact way before I began to study it by myself. And I realized when I came here, especially when I moved to Halifax, it became clearer to me. I've seen it a little bit in Vancouver, but it didn't hit me as much as when I came to Halifax, and it just occurred to me that something needed to be done about this. Now, what is learned helplessness? Just in case you're hearing that expression for the very first time. Learned helplessness is a situation where someone or something that has experienced repeated failure becomes helpless, refuses to continue to make attempts and efforts, towards that same thing because of repeated failure. And this concept is explained with the story of a particular type of fish which happens to feed on another fish. That's the only thing it eats. It doesn't eat worms and fish food and all of those different things. And a test was done where this fish was isolated, and they tried to feed it with other things, and it wouldn't accept it. And then they put the fish that it usually feeds on in the same aquarium, as it were, and divided it, the aquarium with a glass there. And the fish, of course, can't see that it's glass, but it can see the other fish on the other side. And so it kept trying to get to the fish that it usually feeds on. And it kept trying and trying and trying and trying. And it tried over and over again to the point where it was beginning to get tired, right? And then they started to introduce worms and fish food and all of that. Initially, it would ignore those things and just keep attempting to go after the fish that it knows that it can overpower and feed on. Right, but after a long time of repeated failure, the fish gave up and began to feed on the fish food, began to feed on the worm and all of those different things, and after some time, they found out that this fish practically adjusted to its new reality, that it cannot go after that other fish, but now it would feed on worms and fish food and all the other things that fishes usually eat. Here is what was now interesting. After some time, the glass was taken away, and it, of course, it's now a free environment. But they realized that the fish, still did not go after that other fish anymore. It had adjusted. It had become helpless. It had learned how to be helpless. Which is where that concept of learned helplessness comes from. And this relates to us practically. In that most times, we give up on things that we have tried over and over again, and they did not work. So we just come to the conclusion that, well, maybe this is not for me, or maybe this is not what I'm supposed to do, and then we try something else. But it has also been proven that if we are able to stay on something, for as long as 5 years on one particular thing and keep our focus on that one thing, that there's nothing that is impossible to the human mind. As long as you can stay focused on something, the real challenge is staying focused on one thing. That is the real challenge. The real challenge is, how do we get ourselves to stay on one thing for as long as it takes for it to produce, the necessary results. And I will come back to that, because sometimes it's of no fault of ours, right? Sometimes people move, sometimes things change, the economy changes. There's so many things that can be, the reason why people can't stay on something for as long as it takes for it to produce results. But there is the possibility of always coming back, to your dreams, which I will get to in a moment now. But I wanted to also read another story to you, because I mean, the story of the fish is good, but I've come across this concept of learned helplessness in other places. Like I said, after my pastor preached on it some time ago, I decided to study it for myself. And as I read, materials and books and all of these things, I also pick up on things that help me to understand it better, and then which is what I shared, at Advanced Summit. Even though I couldn't really delve into a session for myself at that event, because we had a special assistant of the president of Nigeria coming to join us, and I wanted to give him a session, so I decided not to even go into it at all. I just shared a little bit about my story of failure in the past and all of that. Those of you who follow me online, you know how much I've been raving about this book by Reinhard Bonnke, evangelist Reinhard Bonnke, who has gone to be with the Lord. And this is one of those books that practically changes your life. Honestly, I've read so many books in my life, but this one it really had a big impact on me. Maybe because of where I am in my faith journey right now and the things that I'm reaching for. But it totally changed, the way I saw a lot of things and what I was reaching for and what I considered, what I was going after that looked important. It just helps you to see what is really important in this life at the end of the day, So I was reading it and I came across this concept of learned helplessness again in a story that he shared, and I thought it was instructive. So I'll read that story to you. And it's a story about an elephant as well, right? Like I shared about the fish. This is an elephant that had been trained to be helpless. And this was Reinhard Bonnke when he was a kid. He had gone to these circles, and he had seen this elephant, and he asked the trainer a few questions, and they explained to them how they train these elephants to act in a certain way. So just follow me here. He says, the day the circus train arrived in town, I managed to get away to watch them. Tigers, lions, and bears paced in their railroad cages at the station. This was the closest I had ever been to an exotic wild animal. I walked along the tracks, looking at each of them. The animal trainers used the stallions and the elephants to haul the big tent and its trappings out of a boxcar and into the field at the edge of town. I followed them in awe at the process. The power of the elephant was amazing as he pushed the huge tent pole into place in the center of the field. Afterwards, the crew stopped to eat a sandwich. The elephant trainer put a small cotton rope around the elephant's leg and tethered him to a tent stake. This amazed me. I knew the powerful elephant could pull that stake out of the ground without even trying. How could the trainer trust that he would not bolt for his freedom as soon as he turned his back? I came close enough to engage him in conversation. He seemed to be a very nice man, and he explained how this particular elephant had come from the Eggenberg Zoo in Hamburg. This was the most famous elephant training zoo in the world, he said, and it had been rebuilt by the Eggenberg family after being bombed during the war. The new zoo, he said, was the best in the world. He recommended that I see it one day. Why doesn't the elephant pull the stake out of the ground? I asked him. The trainer smiled. It starts when the elephant is a baby. We place a chain around its leg and we stake it to a strong stake in the ground. The baby elephant pulls against it again and again with all his might, but he can't pull it out. Eventually, he is smart enough to stop trying. When he quits trying to break free, he is fully trained. You can put a thread around his leg, and when he feels the slightest tug, he will think it is the chain, and he will not go against it. His memory tells him that it's impossible. A full-grown elephant would be a very dangerous animal if he wasn't trained like this. This is so powerful. This concept here is so powerful. So what he was explaining to Reinhard Bonnke here was that, you see, the reason why we can put a small rope around this mighty elephant, the leg, and just tie it to a stick, and we know that the elephant can't go away, is because from the time when the elephant was a baby, we have trained this elephant to be helpless. In other words, they put a chain around the leg of the baby elephant when it was young and tied it to something that was really strong. So the baby elephant tried and tried and tried to pull out of that and realized that, listen, I can't do this. So, which of course was impossible at that level. Now, the elephant has grown, but it has been trained. You see, he said eventually he's smart enough to stop trying. How many of us have become smart enough to give up on our dreams? How many, I just imagine, how many of us have become smart enough to stop trying? Where they've told you that because of the color of your skin, you can't do certain things. And you have become smart enough to stop trying. They've told you that because of the resources that are not available to you, you can't achieve your dreams. Then you are smart enough to stop trying. You are smart enough to give up on those things and just go after a day job. You know, and this just spoke to me that this is the exact same concept. This elephant has become trained to be helpless. It had learned how to be helpless. So now, as big as and as powerful as the elephant is, something in his memory still tells him that when something is tied around your leg and put somewhere, it means a restriction. It means you can't move. Even though if it just tries, I mean, just one more attempt in its life from when it has been a baby to now that it's an adult, if it just made one more attempt in his life to just think maybe this thing is not really what it is and just pulls his leg once, it will break everything that is holding it back. But it won't try. Not one more time. Because its memory has become conditioned to assume that once something like an obstacle is around your leg, it's impossible for you to go forward. Listen to me, there is nothing that is impossible to you to do. There is nothing that is impossible for you to achieve, regardless of the environment in which you find yourself. Nothing is impossible to you. There is no dream. Listen, it could take many years. You may have forgotten about the dream. It may have died. I shared this, at the Advanced Summit, that the thing that we've now called Advanced Summit is something that was a dream that I had when I was much younger, that I did for almost 5 years. Then it was called 10 Times Better Young Leaders Summit. And I did it for about 4 or 5 years. But the last experience is better called a flop, honestly, because that's exactly the way I saw it. I know some people who attended may not have seen it as a flop, right? But I saw it as a flop based on what the vision that I had at the time was. And why was it a flop? It was because I was not around in the country then to plan the event. I was in another state, serving my youth service, National Youth Service Corps, which is something we do in Nigeria when you graduate, right, from university. You have to go to another part of the country to serve. And I was doing that for the whole year. So I thought that my team, as it were planning the event. Okay, but nothing was going on. Nothing at all was going on. So on the day of the event, it was practically me and my friends, that had the event. And so just very few people showed up, and it got to me so badly. So I went to God and said, this event, am I supposed to continue doing this thing, or what is it? I don't think I want to do this anymore. This thing is not working anymore. Okay, maybe its time has passed or something, right? And God said to me, just leave it, put it aside. I will tell you when to start again. Honestly, that was how long ago now? Maybe 9 or 10 years ago now, right? That happened to me, and it wasn't until I came to Halifax last year that the thought just hit me again. That okay, maybe this is it, right? And then I went to God in prayer, and He said, "Yeah, go pick it up, do it now, but don't call it 10 times better again now. Change the name, do this, do that." And we began to do things, and it came alive again. And I shared that experience with them. That the fact that you have failed at something does not mean that is the end. It may take 10 years. That dream can still come back alive, only if you will pick it up again. If you will go back to where you've written all those journals that you wrote when you were younger, all those big dreams that you had, all those things that you wanted to do, right, that you had written down and you have forgotten about them because you have tried and tried and tried and it didn't work out. Go and pick them up. The things that you had in your heart when you first came to a foreign land and you thought you were going to achieve, mighty things, big dreams that you had in your heart, don't let go of them. Don't let go of them. Don't let the environment train you to believe that it is only for certain people. Don't let the environment train you to believe that you can't achieve anything without debt. That debt is the only way to go about things in the Western world. Don't let the environment condition you to that. All right? It's all about not giving up on that thing that is inside your heart. You know, and you hear people talk about cut your coat according to your cloth. You know, that saying, right? It's not about cutting your coat according to your cloth, but according to the size of the dream that is on the inside of you. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you are going after things that, and I know that people have to have day jobs, okay, and you have to do that to get resources, even to go after the things that you really want to do. But while you are at it, don't lose sight of the things that are really giving you fulfillment in life, okay. And the things that are giving you fulfillment may not even be things that are bringing you money. Right? Like all of these events that I do, Love Code, Advanced Summit, you know, doing this, for instance, like doesn't bring me anything. Like in terms of financial resources and what I spend my money, you know, to do all of these things, right? But it gives me something else, which is called fulfillment. And anything that gives you fulfillment is what you were wired by God to do. Is probably the thing that you were created to do, the thing that brings you joy, that brings you fulfillment, you know. And if you do it long enough and well enough, it will start bringing you financial reward as well. But it may not happen as quickly as you want it to happen. So you can stay on your job, but don't lose sight of the things that your heart is really yearning for, that your heart is really reaching for. You can do anything. There are people in this land, examples that have, you know, that have broken barriers, and which is what we want to try to do with Advanced Summit in the coming years, to bring people who have proven that it is possible to do anything in this land. It is what you want to reach for that is the issue. What is it that your heart can take? What is the capacity of your heart? What can you trust God for? You know, and regardless of the area that you are into, maybe in business, you may even be in ministry, right? What is it that you really want to go after? And not just, you know, something that benefits you and your family. You know, recently I was reading the story of Paul again, and, you know, it just struck me that, you know, I was looking at all of the things, the sacrifices that Paul made. I think it was one scripture that really triggered it for me, where I saw that the Bible said that Paul lived in his rented apartment for 2 years. I don't know what translation of the Bible I was reading then. I dare you to find that scripture. It says, I won't put it all on the screen so that you will need to find it yourself. It actually literally says Paul lived in his own rented apartment for 2 years. And it occurred to me that what if all that Paul was concerned about in his life was how to be able to afford a mortgage? Because that seems to be the biggest thing now in North America, you know, among, I mean, maybe if you are anywhere between 28 now and about 40, your priority is, when am I going to buy a house? When am I going to be able to afford this mortgage, right? And we tend to lose sight of the things that are really important in life, which is what I was talking about with this book. That you see people who have laid down their lives for the gospel, who literally laid down that's what Reinhard Bonnke did with his life, with his entire life. That's what Apostle Paul did with his life. What if Paul had set his goal to be that I want to own a house in Canada? That's my goal. You know, where would the gospel have been today? The gospel will not be what we are looking at today. The role that Paul played in the gospel is so crucial that if he had let his focus be on just livelihood, you know, and meeting his family's needs, you know, or having children or raising a family, which are all good things, you know, which are really good things. But we can do those things and not lose sight of the most important things. We can raise families and have children, you know, Reinhard Bonnke had a family, okay? So you can do that, but not lose sight of what is really on the heart of God, and not now make, you know, your lifestyle the priority, but the dream that God has put inside your heart. And that dream can be in anything. It can be in ministry, like I've said, but it can also be in the marketplace. It can be in business, it can be in the arts, in entertainment, in whatever it is. It can be in sports, it can be in anything, okay? You want to go after the dream that is inside of your heart, regardless of how many times you have failed before. If that is the thing that keeps you up at night, if that is the thing that your heart continues to reach for, please don't let go of it. Keep it before your eyes. Keep looking at it. The problem is most times we have things that we have written, but they are, you know, somewhere that we can't find them. They are in places that we don't even know. We can't find it. So we're not seeing it all the time. It's not before us. You know, it's not in front of us all the time. We're not looking at it constantly. That's not what we're paying attention to. And if you're not looking at your dream consistently, there's no fuel for your passion. There's nothing that is fueling that desire anymore. So your mind will start to drift, because your life will always go in the direction of your most dominant thoughts. There's no other way around it. Your life always goes in the direction of your most dominant thoughts. So you want to keep it before you. You want to make it the thing that you are thinking about consistently and that you are focused on. If you can keep it before you and you can stay focused, like I said before, staying focused is the most difficult part of this thing. That is the most difficult part. If you can stay focused on it for as long as it takes. And I know sometimes, it's not people's fault that they can't stay on something. For somebody who relocates, for instance, and the environment where he is now is not the same. There has to be a dream that is consistent with where you are and the place that you have put, that you have been put, that God has put you. There is a dream inside your heart that will benefit the people around you, that will benefit the society and the community around you. That is not just about you and your family. There is always that dream. But you have to keep it before you and you have to go after it. Nobody else will do it for you. They always say that every idea needs a parent. Every idea, whether it's a business idea, every idea needs a host. Every idea needs a parent. A host before it is born and a parent after it is born. Once that idea has been conceived, there needs to be someone who is looking after that idea, who is pursuing that idea. When anything is working, it's because someone is working it. That's just the way it is. So you have to stay with it. You have to keep it before you and consistently go over it so that you can keep it before your eyes. And one day, it will become reality. It will become a reality in your life. And people will benefit from the gifts and the callings that God has put on the inside of you. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm out of time today, but I will see you again very, very soon. You can follow me on social media at PST Seun Salami or across my social media platforms. Like I've been saying, look out for our coming podcast. I don't want to announce the name or anything yet because we're still working on the website, on registering things and putting everything together. But there's a podcast coming. We're going to have a brand new program that we would have for that, and that would be very consistent and something that would be a real blessing to you. Thank you once again for joining me today. I will see you again very soon. Until then, God bless you.